Let's now look at how we can go about checking. We are now checking for a single character in a string. I want to determine if the length of my word has more than 10 characters or not. So I'm checking. I'm not checking a single character in this particular example. In this example, I'm checking the length of the word. So I'm inputting a word and it's stored in the variable str. So let's find the length. ilen is equal to length of str. Now I've got the length, and now I can check it using an if statement. A check means using an if statement. So if ilen, we want to check if it's more than 10 characters, is greater than 10, then what do I want to do? Let's just output a message. Let's assume, or let's use a show message. Show message. And I'm going to say has more than 10 characters. Okay, I can then say end, and then I'm going to say else, but whenever we use an else, we don't use a semicolon before that. Begin, and then I can say show message. And in this instance, I can say does not have more than 10 characters. There we are. End. So here we want to check a single character in a string. I'm going to input a word. The user will input a word into this edit box, and it's going to be stored in str. Determine if the first character is the letter A or not. So I want to check if the first character is a letter A or not. So having input the string, I'm now going to check if the first character will be str1. And I want to check if that is equal to an A. Then I want to output. Let's use a show message. The message will say contains an A at position 1. That's my message. And similarly, I should have an else to say else does not contain an A at position 1. So I'm checking the first character. There it is here. str1 equals A. In the next one, I want to determine if the last character is a vowel or not. Now we're checking for vowels, and we know that our vowels are A, E, I, O, and U. So I want to check if I have vowels in the last character. So in order to work out the last character, you should know by now that I need to find the length. So ilen will be length of str. Okay, that's my str that I'm inputting the word into. I get the length, and now I want to check if the last character is a vowel. So let's go ahead. So I'm going to say if, and I'm going to say str square bracket ilen. That is going to check the last character. And I'm going to check if that is equal to an A, or now I need to make use of brackets. str square bracket here, not to get confused. ILN, I'm checking the position. If that is equal to A, E, close your bracket, or I'm going to do it one more time. I'm going to check STR ILN, that's the last character, AEI. And you're going to continue for O and for U. And you're going to have your then. You'll have your then statement after that's completed. And you'll then have a message, a show message. And your show message will be something like last character is a vowel. End. And then you could have an else to say last character is not a vowel. So what I'm trying to show you here is we can use the same statements that we were using previously to get a specific character, and we can do checking on these characters. And we can then manipulate, and we can then do different types of calculations on this. In fact, there's a much easier way. Instead of having so many of these different checks, there's something called an in statement. There's an in statement in Delphi, and you can use the in statement and you can set up a set. And in the set, you can just put down A, E, I, O, U separated with commas, and it becomes very easy to use. But that will be explained to you at a later stage. So remember that for a single character that we are obtaining using square brackets and position, we can do checking on that. Now the question is, instead of just checking one specific character, be it the first character or the last character, how do I check every character in my string? So here the question states, I'm inputting a word. Count how many times the letter A appears in the word. I don't know. I don't know what the word is, right? How do I check? Does this position 1, is that an A? Is position 2 an A? Is position 3 an A? And so forth. Right up until it reaches the end. Is that last position an A? So instead of just checking one specific position, how can I now check every position in my string? Karan?
You can use the, well, you pulling out all the string variable, and you can use the square brackets.
But if you look at what I did previously it was just working with one specific character. Like if you look at this one here, it was just with position 1. This one was with the last position. Now my question is, how do I check every position? I want to check if there's an A. How many A's are there in this word? Mir, you want to come in?
So I was thinking about using a loop, but I don't really think that will work effectively.
So could you use the length?
Right. So what both of you have now said is brilliant. Mir said use a loop, and you are saying use length, because we need to use length to know what the last, where to stop the loop.
Yeah.
So there's two key things we have to now keep in mind. If you want to check every character in the word or the sentence or the string, we now need to make use of a for loop. So we run the loop for I, assign the value 1, 2. If I knew it had 8 characters, I'll run it from 1 to 8. If I knew it had 10 characters, I'll run it from 1 to 10. But I don't know how many characters there are. But I know a function that tells us how many characters there are. So I use that function, and that now runs the loop from 1 to the length of the string. So if str has 50 characters, for example, that's exaggerated, but if it has 50 characters, then the loop is going to run 1 to 50, which will run 50 times. And then for me to now check each character, check means I put in an if statement, and then I say if str I is equal to, I'm looking for an A, I'm searching for an A, then do whatever you need to do. I want to count how many times an A is found. So whenever I find an A, create a counter. This is an accumulator. Count equals count plus 1. This means by repeating the variable on both sides, it's going to accumulate by 1. So I'm going to say end, and whenever you have a counter variable, you have to initialize it. Before the loop, you set it to 0. You're initializing it to 0. So the reason you initialize it to 0, so the first time round, count has a value which will start off at a 0. But the key thing here that you should be aware of, the key thing that you must take note of, is that you are working with the string using square brackets, and I'm using I. In the loop counter, I is constantly changing as the loop executes. The first value that I takes on is 1. So I'm looking at position 1, and that's going to be looking at that character. When the loop goes back up from 1, it becomes 2. I becomes 2. So now you are looking at position 2, if that is equal to an A. So now you're looking at that position. Then the loop goes back up. I becomes 3. I'm checking position 3, if that equals to an A. And each time this condition is true, then the accumulator accumulates by 1. It adds 1 to the existing value. And then once I come outside of my loop, so at this point, I will have a show message statement to tell me number of times the letter A appears is, okay, and then I need to print count. Count is telling me this information, and then I'm going to say string to int, or int to string rather, int to string, and I'm going to print count. So this is how you would go about checking all the characters in a word. Unlike previously where we were just checking a single character in a word. So through the use of a loop, we can then go to each position. We can go to each position in the string, and we can manipulate it or check it in any way that we want to.